"Marcus, darling," she said in the velvety voice that sounded like poisoned honey. Hannah immediately saw Marcus Donovan's body tense. "Victoria," he replied stiffly. "And who is this little creature?" Victoria asked with a fake smile. "Hannah Mitchell, my assistant," Marcus replied, his voice strained. "Oh, how cute." Victoria laughed, but it wasn't a warm laugh. Marcus always had a thing for unusual employees. Hannah felt her blood boil. Unusual in the sense of not being fake, from her nails to her personality. Victoria's smile faltered for a fraction of a second, but soon returned. "Marcus, darling, we need to talk alone." She completely ignored Hannah and possessively grabbed Marcus's arm. "I'm sure you're tired of this rebellious phase. Why don't we go back to how we were? We were perfect together." Marcus looked at Hannah, then at Victoria, visibly uncomfortable. Hannah could see the panic growing in his eyes. And then he did something completely unexpected. "Actually, Victoria, I'm engaged." The entire ballroom seemed to fall silent. Victoria's eyes widened, and Hannah almost dropped her champagne glass. "Engaged?" Victoria repeated, stunned. "To whom?" Marcus took a deep breath and looked directly at Hannah. "To Hannah." You're going to be surprised by this story. Stick with me until the end and you'll see why. But first, I have a small favor to ask. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what score you give this story from 0 to 10. This really helps the channel grow. Okay, let's begin. The millionaire CEO hadn't smiled in 20 years until he heard his new secretary singing. Hannah Mitchell was humming her favorite song, swaying slightly in her office chair while stacking papers and using a stapler as a microphone. The workday was already over and the building was pretty much empty. At least that's what Hannah thought. Wearing a blazer one size too big and shoes that made a click-clack sound with every step, she was performing with heart. She even did the choreography, which included a dramatic meow, a Broadway-worthy head toss, and an awkward little hip shake. But behind her, someone had shown up at the office door. It was Marcus Donovan, the company's CEO, the most feared, respected, expressionless man who never smiled. And there he was, watching that performance like he'd just seen an alien during prime time. Hannah, unaware of her VIP audience, kept going, singing about the political candidate. Marcus crossed his arms, still holding the folder he came back to retrieve. For a second, just 1 second, the stiffness in his face faded. The corner of his mouth curved up, almost invisible but real. He smiled. For the first time in 20 years, a phenomenon rarer than a solar eclipse and a leap year that falls on a Friday holiday. Hannah, turning with a dramatic spin, came face to face with him. The scream echoed. She dropped a pile of folders, tripped over the swivel chair, hit her knee on the desk, and in the panic, dropped her purse on the floor, spilling lipsticks, gum, and a tiny rubber duck. "Oh my God, boss, did you teleport here?" Marcus cleared his throat, but his mouth was twitching. He was clearly trying not to laugh. "I just came back for a document I forgot," he said, voice steady, but his eyes betrayed the chaos within. Hannah, trying to keep some dignity while picking up the duck, spoke. "I swear this song has social depth. It's about feline representation in politics, you know." Marcus raised an eyebrow. Hannah stood up, adjusting the blazer that had its zipper stuck in her pants fabric. "Wait a second." She squinted, staring at his face like she was examining a valuable painting. "That was a smile, wasn't it? It was right. I saw it. Can I call the New York Times?" Marcus looked away, returning to his serious posture. "Do you always sing like that when you think no one's watching?" Hannah shrugged, still out of breath. "Only when I'm really happy or really tired or slightly low on blood sugar." She held out the documents to him, but dropped half of them again in the process. Marcus bent down to help, and for a moment their eyes met. The silence wasn't as awkward as it should have been. "Is your shift over, Miss Hannah?" She scrambled to pick up the scattered paper as her face still flushed. "Technically, yes, but you know how it is. First week, I want to show dedication and a sense of humor. Maybe too much." Marcus watched her a second longer than necessary, then took the folder, turned to leave, and said, "Have a good evening, Miss Political Cat." "Good night, boss." Hannah stood there, holding the rubber duck in her hand, eyes wide and heart pounding. She ran to the window and watched Marcus step into the elevator. He smiled. "I saw it. That's worth the price," she muttered to herself. Inside the elevator, Marcus stood still, staring at his reflection in the mirror doors. Slowly, the corner of his mouth turned up again, a little smile. The security guard in the corner of the elevator choked on his own spit. "Mr. Donovan, did you just smile?" Marcus didn't answer, but the smile, now full, lasted all the way to the ground floor. Meanwhile, Hannah was tidying up the mess in the office, murmuring, "Congrats, Hannah. You just sang a funky political cat song in front of the scariest man in the building. If I still have a badge tomorrow, I'll consider it a win." But she started humming again, this time dancing with the rubber duck in her hand. And back in the elevator, Marcus was still trying to make sense of what exactly had happened in that office. But one thing was clear. After 20 years, something inside him had started to change. At 3 in the afternoon on a Tuesday, chaos broke out in the office. Margaret, Marcus's executive assistant, ran down the halls like the building was on fire. "Emergency! Emergency!" Margaret shouted, waving her arms as she rushed through the hallway. Hannah and a few other employees gathered around her. What happened? "The Japanese investor arrived early. The meeting that was supposed to be tomorrow is happening today, in 1 hour, and our official interpreter just called. She has food poisoning." Margaret looked around, clearly panicking. "Does anyone here speak Japanese? Anything at all?" Total silence. Hannah timidly raised her hand. "I know how to say arigato and sayonara. Does that count?" Margaret looked at her like she was the last life raft on the Titanic. "You'll have to do. Come with me." 5 minutes later, Hannah stood in front of Marcus's office door as Margaret knocked frantically. "Come in," came the firm voice of the CEO. Margaret shoved Hannah into the luxurious office. "Mr. Donovan, we found a temporary solution for the interpreter issue." Marcus looked up from his papers and saw Hannah standing there like a lost penguin in the desert. "Hannah," he frowned. "She speaks Japanese," Margaret lied without hesitation. Marcus looked at Hannah. "You speak Japanese?" he asked, clearly doubtful. "Well," Hannah swallowed hard, "I know how to say hello and goodbye, and I can apologize, which will probably come in handy." Marcus rubbed his face, clearly regretting everything about the moment. "The investor arrives in 50 minutes. "Great, I'm so doomed," Hannah muttered, starting to panic. Marcus sighed deeply, like a man realizing he was about to skydive with no training. "Just smile and take notes. Or at least try to," he said, already visibly regretting his own words. Hannah's eyes widened, processing the instruction. Take notes or smile, because doing both at once, boss, is multitasking on another level. And there it was again, the barely noticeable movement at the corner of Marcus's mouth. 40 minutes later, Hannah was unrecognizable. Margaret had pulled off a miracle, a navy blue suit that almost fit, heels that only pinched a little, and even a pair of fake glasses to give her a more intellectual vibe. "Remember," Margaret whispered, "keep your posture upright, speak softly, and for the love of everything holy, don't sing." Hannah nodded nervously and headed toward the conference room, where Marcus was already waiting. He looked her up and down, clearly impressed by the transformation, but kept his face neutral. "Ready?" he asked, adjusting his tie. "Define ready," Hannah replied, "because if you mean completely lost but willing to try, then yes." Marcus sighed and opened the conference room door. The Japanese investor, Mr. Hiroshi Tanaka, was already seated, flanked by 2 assistants. He was a middle-aged man, impeccably dressed, with a serious expression that made Marcus look like a stand-up comedian. "Mr. Tanaka," Marcus bowed respectfully, "it's an honor to have you here." He pulled out his phone, opened the translation app and quickly typed. The phone spoke in a robotic Japanese voice, making Mr. Tanaka raise an eyebrow. Hannah stepped forward. "This is my personal assistant, Hannah Mitchell," Marcus said into the translator. The app translated it into something that sounded like, "This is my personal banana, Hannah Bennett." Mr. Tanaka blinked several times, visibly confused. Hannah decided it was time to step in. She bowed politely and said, "Arigato gozaimasu." Mr. Tanaka smiled for the first time, clearly touched and surprised by the effort. "Ah, you speak Japanese," he replied, in heavily accented English. Hannah's eyes widened. He spoke English? All that drama with the translator for nothing. "Just a tiny bit," she lied, holding up her pinky. "Like teeny tiny." Marcus shot her a glare, but motioned for everyone to sit down. The meeting officially began. Marcus presented the company's numbers while Hannah pretended to take important notes. In reality, she was doodling little cats in the margins of the official document. "Our company grew 30% over the last year," Marcus explained. Hannah nodded enthusiastically, as if mentally translating. "Impressive," Mr. Tanaka commented. Hannah perked up. "Yes, very impressive," Hannah agreed, clapping her hands enthusiastically. Marcus looked at her with a mix of horror and disbelief. 15 minutes later, Hannah got up to serve coffee. It was a simple task: grab the tray and hand out the cups. But Hannah had a unique talent for making simple things complicated. First, she tripped over the laptop cable, making the screen wobble. Then she mixed up the drinks, giving espresso to someone who asked for decaf and green tea to Marcus, who hadn't asked for anything at all. "Sorry," she mumbled, trying to fix the mix-up, only to spill sugar onto the investor's folder. But instead of getting upset, Mr. Tanaka started to laugh. "You are very, how you say, authentic. Very different from assistants I know." Hannah smiled. "I'm definitely one of a kind, hopefully in a good way." While Marcus talked about market projections, Hannah continued making her special notes. Instead of writing on the official minutes, she was doodling on the back of an important contract, sketching a comic strip about business cats. Mr. Tanaka noticed and leaned over to look. "Is this a cat in a suit?" Hannah blushed. Yes, a visual metaphor for feline leadership in the corporate world." The investor burst into laughter. "Brilliant! You Americans are so creative." Marcus watched the scene, unsure whether to laugh or cry, but his eyes were shining in a way he didn't recognize. It was pure amusement. As the meeting went on, Hannah relaxed and started being herself. She asked silly questions that led to interesting answers, told a joke about cultural differences that made the investor laugh until he cried. "This is the most entertaining meeting I've ever had," declared Mr. Tanaka, wiping his eyes. "You have made my day very special." When Marcus finally got to the key point, the investment proposal, Hannah decided it was time for a toast. She picked up the leftover orange juice from the snack tray and raised her glass. "A toast to our future partnership." Mr. Tanaka loved the idea and lifted his cup of tea. "To the future," said Marcus, raising his glass of water. "To mutual success," added the investor. Hannah, caught up in the moment, blurted out, "Merci beaucoup, samurai." Everyone froze. 3 long seconds of silence. Then Mr. Tanaka burst into laughter so loud the receptionist on the floor below probably heard it. "Merci beaucoup, samurai," he repeated, slapping the table. "That is fantastic. French and Japanese together, international." He turned to Marcus. "Mr. Donovan, I accept the proposal. This company has something special. You have energy, have fun, are different. This is exactly what my company needs." Marcus blinked several times, trying to process what had just happened. "Serious?" Hannah asked, momentarily forgetting to use formal English. "Very serious," confirmed Mr. Tanaka, still laughing. "Hannah-san, you are a wonderful surprise." After Mr. Tanaka and his assistants left, still laughing and chatting about the most entertaining meeting of their lives, Marcus and Hannah were left alone in the room. "You just closed the biggest deal in this company's history," Marcus replied slowly. "Using French, drawing cats, and toasting with orange juice?" Hannah stared at him. "Is that good or bad?" Marcus shook his head as if confused by his own thoughts. "You don't follow any rules, but somehow everything works out with you. You'll continue accompanying me as my personal assistant. We have another event tonight." 6 hours later, Hannah was standing at the Plaza Hotel in a teal dress she had rented. Marcus was waiting, immaculate in his black tuxedo. When Hannah appeared at the top of the marble staircase, trying not to trip, he was speechless for a few seconds. "You look," he began. "Ridiculous," Hannah cut in. "I was going to say beautiful, but ridiculous works too," he replied. The ballroom was filled with New York's elite. Hannah glanced around and whispered, "I feel like a microwave pizza at a French banquet." Marcus almost smiled. "Just smile and be yourself." It worked with the Japanese investor. The first hour was a parade of awkward introductions. Hannah greeted billionaires like they were neighbors from her apartment building. Later, a platinum-haired lady wearing a pearl necklace asked Hannah about art. "Oh, I prefer the classics, really. Tom and Jerry never go out of style," Hannah replied. The woman blinked, confused, but Marcus quickly redirected the conversation. That's when the night took an unexpected turn. As we saw at the beginning of our story, Victoria appeared, cornering Marcus with her manipulations, and Hannah, without thinking twice, stepped forward and claimed to be Marcus's fiancée, changing both their lives forever. The next morning, the gossip was everywhere. Magazine covers, celebrity blogs, news feeds. Lonely CEO announces surprise engagement to exotic secretary. Hannah woke up to her phone buzzing nonstop. She groaned and opened the first headline she saw. There it was, a photo of her and Marcus holding hands. She looked completely shocked. "Exotic secretary," she read aloud. Well, at least they didn't say weird. 1 hour later, Hannah was sitting in Marcus's office, staring at a pile of newspapers and magazines spread across his desk. Marcus was standing by the window. 17 paparazzi, he muttered. 17 people with professional cameras waiting to document our every move. "We need to talk about this," he said. "The situation is out of control. But," he hesitated, "maybe it's not entirely bad. The board is thrilled. Our public image has never looked better. Stock went up 3% just this morning. And there's an important deal in progress with Morrison and Associates. A 35-year-old bachelor CEO made them question my stability." Hannah started to see where this was going. "You want me to keep pretending to be your fiancé for a limited time. And what do I get out of this?" Marcus blinked. "What do you mean?" "Marcus, darling," Hannah said, "pretending to be madly in love with someone who has the emotional range of an ironing board is hard work. I deserve compensation." "What kind of compensation?" Hannah flashed a smile. "First, a raise. 20%. 10, Marcus replied instantly. 15. Second, extra time off every Friday afternoon." "Impossible." "Then every Monday morning." Marcus sighed. "Fine." Third, car service for all public events. Accepted. Fourth, chocolate in the office, the good kind. Marcus looked genuinely confused. Chocolate? Swiss chocolate or Belgian? Your choice. Why chocolate? Because pretending to be in love makes me hungry, and hungry me is cranky me. Marcus paused. Fine. Anything else? That's it for now, but I reserve the right to renegotiate. They shook hands, sealing the most surreal agreement either of them had ever made. Later that week, during a high-stakes meeting with potential investors from Morrison and Associates, Hannah realized her presence had an unexpected effect on business. The meeting was tense. The three Morrison executives, serious middle-aged men, sat stiffly around the table, clearly unimpressed by Marcus's technical presentation. "Mr. Donovan," said the eldest, Richard Morrison, "your numbers are impressive, but we have some concerns about your company culture." But then, Hannah, seated beside him and pretending to take notes, let out a small, adorable sneeze. "Excuse me," she said, "I think I'm allergic to excessive formality." The executives blinked, surprised. "How do you mean?" Hannah glanced at Marcus. "Well, you've been here an hour talking about charts and spreadsheets, but no one's asked once about the people who work here. Marcus might come off a bit robotic, she gave him a playful pat on the arm, but he truly cares about his employees. Hannah, Marcus muttered, but Richard looked intrigued. Go on. The other day, he found out the receptionist's daughter was in the hospital. He paid for all the medical bills. Didn't tell a soul. Marcus stared at her in genuine surprise. And there's more, Hannah went on, excited. He changed the entire maternity leave policy. Now moms get 6 months of paid leave. The Morrison executives exchanged looks. That wasn't in our report, Richard said. Hannah shrugged. Marcus is modest. He does good and hides it like a superhero in a suit. One of the executives chuckled. A superhero in a suit? Exactly. He fights corporate injustice, Hannah gestured dramatically. The only difference is, instead of a cape, he wears expensive ties. The whole room was laughing now, including Richard Morrison. Miss Mitchell, Richard said, your perspective on Mr. Donovan is refreshing. Richard stood and extended his hand. Mr. Donovan, consider the deal done. A company that inspires this kind of loyalty and fun is exactly what we're looking for. After the investors left, Marcus and Hannah were alone. You knew about Sarah, Marcus asked quietly, about the medical bills. Hannah blushed slightly. I may overhear a little too much, but it was really kind of you. Marcus looked at her for a long moment. You just closed a $10 million deal by making me sound like a superhero in a suit. Technically, you are the superhero. I just translated it into human language. The next morning, Hannah was at the Manhattan Elite magazine studio, being styled, brushed, powdered, and dressed like a luxury doll. The chosen dress was a soft, elegant baby blue. You look stunning, said the makeup artist. Marcus arrived 10 minutes later, as flawless as always, but Hannah noticed a new kind of tension in his shoulders. Nervous? She asked, adjusting his tie. No, he lied. The photographer, Alejandro, greeted them with open arms. There they are, the lovebirds. Hannah whispered to Marcus, he sounds like a children's show host on too much caffeine. The shoot began with basic poses. Hannah discovered she had a talent for this, tossing out jokes that made Marcus relax. Beautiful, perfect, Alejandro shouted. Now closer. As the session went on, Alejandro became more demanding. I need more chemistry, more intensity. How about a little dance? Alejandro suggested. A soft instrumental song began to play. Marcus offered his hand. Hannah took it, and they began to move slowly. You dance well, Hannah murmured. Mandatory childhood lessons, he replied. My mother insisted. Mine insisted I learn how to change a tire. Different priorities. Marcus chuckled quietly, and Hannah felt a strange flutter in her stomach. Perfect, perfect, Alejandro exclaimed. But I need more, more. Maybe a kiss? Marcus felt Marcus's body tense immediately. Kiss? Just a little kiss, Alejandro insisted. It doesn't have to be a real kiss, she whispered. Just lips touching, like in theater. Marcus nodded stiffly. They got into position. Marcus gently placed his hands on Hannah's face. But just as they leaned in, Hannah stepped on the edge of the ornate Persian rug. Her heel caught, and she lost her balance completely, flying toward Marcus like a runaway missile. He tried to catch her, but the impact threw them both off. Their lips met. Not a soft stage kiss, a real, full, accidental kiss. The camera's flash went off automatically. For 2 seconds that felt like forever, they stood like that, both too shocked to move. Oh my God, Alejandro screamed. That was perfect, pure magic. The entire studio staff started clapping and cheering. Hannah and Marcus quickly pulled apart, both flushed and visibly uncomfortable. That was, Marcus started. Hannah cut in fast. Total accident. Blame the rug. In the following days, the photo went viral. The memes came fast. The secretary who took down the CEO with love. When you trip and fall into your destiny. Hannah was in the office scrolling through the comments when Marcus entered looking visibly rattled. "Did you see this?" he asked. "I saw. We're famous." Marcus didn't laugh. He was pacing across the office like a caged animal. "This is completely out of control." "Marcus, relax. It's just a photo." Margaret appeared at the door holding an elegant envelope. "Mr. Donovan, this just came in." Marcus opened the envelope. "The annual Donovan family ball," he said. "My parents want to meet my future wife." Hannah felt her stomach drop. "Your parents?" "Exactly." She took the invitation. "Cordially invites Hannah Mitchell, future Mrs. Donovan." Well, that escalated quickly. Marcus sank into his chair. "The ball is next Saturday at the family mansion. Every Donovan will be there, along with half of New York's elite and the press." Hannah looked at the golden embossed card. "So I'm going to meet your parents, pretending to be your fiancé, at a gala surrounded by rich and powerful people while photographers document everything." Basically, this definitely calls for triple chocolate and a crash course in etiquette and maybe therapy afterward. Marcus finally looked at her. "Do you still want to go through with this?" Hannah thought about the accidental kiss, the weird flutter in her stomach. "Of course," she said, "but you're going to owe me way more than chocolate after this." On Saturday night, Hannah sat in the passenger seat of Marcus's car, adjusting her emerald green dress for the 10th time. "Nervous?" Marcus asked. "Me? Nervous?" Hannah laughed, but the sound came out too high-pitched. "I'm just going to meet your entire family, pretending to be your fiancé. Why would I be nervous?" Marcus drove in silence for a few minutes before speaking again. "My parents are intense." Hannah watched him as he drove. There was something different in his posture. "Marcus?" "Yes." "Why didn't you smile for 20 years?" The question came out more directly than she intended. Marcus almost hit the brakes. "Everyone at the company talks about it. Marcus Donovan never smiles. But why exactly 20 years?" Marcus was quiet for so long. Finally, in a low voice, he said, "I lost someone important." Hannah felt the weight of his words. "I'm sorry." "It was my twin brother," Marcus interrupted quietly. "Nathan. We were identical, but he was the opposite of me. Always laughing, always making everyone laugh." Hannah didn't say anything. She just waited. "He died in a car accident when we were 15. After that, smiling felt wrong, like I was betraying his memory." Hannah's eyes welled up. "Marcus, that's not stupid. It's human. But do you really think your brother would have wanted you to stop smiling because of him?" Marcus didn't answer, but something in his expression softened. "I bet he was the kind of person who made everyone laugh, even when he was sad," Hannah continued gently. "And if he were here now, I bet he'd be joking about you pretending to date the clumsiest employee in the company." This time, Marcus smiled. A small, real smile. "He would have loved you. You have the same questionable sense of humor." Hannah smiled back. "So when I make you laugh, it's not betrayal, it's remembering." 15 minutes later, they arrived at the Donovan mansion. Hannah looked out the window. This isn't a house, it's a small country. The mansion was massive with perfectly manicured gardens. They stepped into the grand hall, which was decorated with white and gold flowers. "Marcus!" a warm female voice called out. A graceful woman with silver hair approached. Hannah knew instantly it was Marcus's mother. "Mom!" Marcus kissed her cheek. "This is Hannah." "Hannah!" Eleanor Donovan clasped both of Hannah's hands. "Finally! I've been dying to meet the woman who made my son smile again." "Mrs. Donovan, it's a pleasure," Hannah said. "Eleanor, sweetheart, and you're even more beautiful in person than in all those magazine photos." William Donovan approached. "So, you're the famous secretary who won over our CEO." "Technically, I won him over with a song about political cats," Hannah replied. "It wasn't exactly a master plan." Eleanor burst out laughing. "I love it. Marcus has always been so serious." Eleanor turned to Hannah. "Did you know when he was little, he used to give business presentations with his stuffed animals?" I need to hear this story, Hannah said. He was 7 and held a meeting with all his teddy bears to discuss equal toy distribution, Eleanor shared. He even made charts. Hannah looked at Marcus, who was now visibly red. Charts at 7. It was a phase, he muttered. It was adorable, Eleanor corrected. He's always been special, and now he's found someone just as special. Hannah felt a sudden pang of guilt. Eleanor's joy was real, and Hannah was lying to her face. The night continued pleasantly. Hannah mingled with Marcus's relatives, heard more adorable childhood stories. But just as she was reaching for champagne, a voice froze her in place. What a coincidence, seeing you here. Hannah turned. There was Victoria, radiant in a red dress. Victoria, Marcus said tightly. Hello, lovebirds. Victoria's smile was icy. Still playing house? Victoria stepped closer. Do you two really think anyone's buying this act? A nobody secretary who suddenly becomes the fiancé of New York's most unattainable CEO? Marcus moved forward. Victoria, I'm just being realistic, she interrupted sharply, and I happen to have proof that your darling Hannah is a professional opportunist. Messages, shady contacts, a very interesting background. Hannah knew it was a lie. You have a choice, Victoria continued. Admit this little love story is a farce, or tomorrow everyone will know exactly who Hannah Mitchell really is. Hannah took a deep breath and smiled. Victoria, sweetheart, you're making a lot of noise over nothing. You know what I think? I think you miss Marcus, and you're making up stories for attention. It's kinda desperate. Victoria's face turned crimson. How dare you? I dare because I have just enough class to recognize unnecessary drama, Hannah said. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to dance with my fiancé. She took Marcus's hand and led him away. An hour later, in the car outside Hannah's apartment, silence sat heavy between them. She could be bluffing, Hannah said. Marcus pulled up but didn't unlock the doors. Hannah, he began. Marcus, look at me. It doesn't matter what Victoria does. We're going to be okay. There was something different in the air now. The tension had shifted. It was something else, something real. Marcus was looking at her like he was truly seeing her for the first time. You're incredible, he murmured. I know, Hannah said with a quiet smile. He leaned in first. This time, it wasn't an accident. Not for a camera, it was real. And when their lips met, Hannah felt something click. Moments later, they were climbing the stairs to Hannah's apartment, still kissing, laughing, falling into something they couldn't name yet but didn't need to. That night, for the first time, they didn't pretend. The next morning, Hannah woke up to the smell of coffee and burnt toast. She found Marcus in her tiny kitchen, frowning at the toaster. Good morning, she said. Good morning, he smiled. Hope you like your eggs, slightly charred. Your kitchen is challenging. Hannah laughed. It's perfect. And for the first time in a long time, nothing she said was pretend. On Monday morning, Hannah stepped into the office humming softly. She could still taste the goodbye kiss Marcus had given her. But the moment she stepped into the office, she knew something was terribly wrong. Jennifer ran up to her. Hannah, did you see it? See what? Jennifer showed her phone. The screen was full of angry comments and screenshots of conversations Hannah had never had. Jennifer Mitchell, the truth about the gold digger who fooled the CEO. Greedy secretary had everything planned from day one. Hannah took the phone with trembling hands. The screenshots looked real, with her pictures and everything. I never wrote this, Hannah murmured. Jennifer, I swear. I know you wouldn't do this, Jennifer said quickly, but it's everywhere. Hannah kept reading. The comments were cruel, obviously a scam. Poor man tricked by his own employee. Miss Mitchell, Margaret showed up. The board wants to speak with you right away. Hannah went up, her legs unsteady. 5 men in suits were waiting. Marcus stood in the corner, visibly upset. "Miss Mitchell," said Richard Morrison, "I'm sure you've seen the allegations." "They're lies," Hannah said. "I never wrote those messages." "Maybe so," Morrison replied coldly, "but whether they're real or not, they're doing serious damage. Stock went down 2% this morning." Another board member spoke up. "We need immediate damage control." Hannah looked at Marcus, hoping he would say something, but he just stood there silent, with a tortured look on his face. "Therefore," Morrison continued, "we're asking for your immediate resignation. We also suggest that you publicly end your relationship." "Richard," Marcus spoke for the first time, "maybe this is too hasty." "Marcus," Morrison cut him off, "you know this has to be done." Hannah felt something break inside her chest. It wasn't just the unfairness. It was seeing Marcus hesitate. She stood up slowly. "It doesn't have to be a resignation. I'll step down." "Hannah," Marcus began.
"It's okay," she forced a smile. "Business is business." Hannah took off her badge and placed it on the table. "Thank you for letting me live my little soap opera for a while." She walked out without looking back, even as she heard Marcus calling her name. 2 hours later, Hannah was back in her Brooklyn neighborhood carrying a box with her things. In the days that followed, Hannah went back to her old routine. She resumed teaching music at the local community school, where the kids didn't know her as anything other than Miss Hannah. "Miss Hannah," shouted 6-year-old Tommy, "can you teach that cat song again?" "Of course, Tommy." The kids laughed and clapped, and for the first time in days, Hannah was able to momentarily forget the pain in her chest. Meanwhile, across town, Marcus couldn't focus on anything. That night, alone in his luxurious apartment, Marcus could only think about Hannah, how she sang off key, how she made him laugh without even trying. He caught himself smiling at the memory, and then the tears started. 4 weeks later, Hannah was teaching a class when she started to feel strange, dizzy, nauseous. "Miss Hannah, are you okay?" asked Sophie. "I'm fine, sweetheart." Hannah rushed to the bathroom and threw up. The next morning, she was at the doctor's office, nervous. "Well, Hannah," Dr. Martinez said with a smile, "I have news for you. You're pregnant, about 3 weeks along." The world stopped. "Pregnant?" Hannah repeated. "Yes! Congratulations! Does the father know yet?" Hannah shook her head. "No, I'm not going to tell him." "Why not?" Hannah thought about Marcus hesitating in the boardroom. "Because I don't want anyone to think I'm doing this for money. I'll raise the baby on my own."
"Hannah, raising a child alone is hard. If the father is a good man—" "He is," Hannah interrupted, the tears finally coming. "He's a wonderful man. That's why I can't tell him. Not right now." That night, Marcus was at home looking at a photo of Hannah on his phone. She was laughing, and her smile lit up the whole picture. He closed his eyes and could hear her voice singing. For the first time in 20 years, Marcus Donovan cried. Not the quiet tears he had shed when he lost his brother, but the deep regret of letting the love of his life walk away without fighting for her. And across the city, Hannah placed her hand on her still flat belly and whispered, "It's just you and me now, little one, and we're going to be okay. Somehow, we're going to be okay." Marcus couldn't sleep. At 4 a.m. on Tuesday, he was at the office, surrounded by piles of documents. Hiring a digital investigation firm had cost a small fortune, but the results were worth every penny. The message screenshots were fake, expertly fabricated, but fake. The digital trail led straight to one source, Victoria Hampton. Marcus looked at the report for the 10th time. Hannah was innocent. She had always been innocent, and he had let her go without defending her. At 8 a.m, Margaret arrived. "Mr. Donovan, did you sleep here?" "Margaret, call an emergency meeting with the entire board, now." An hour later, the same 5 men were seated in the boardroom, clearly annoyed. "Marcus," said Morrison, "I hope this is truly urgent." Marcus placed a thick folder on the table. "Gentlemen, we've discovered that Hannah Mitchell is completely innocent." The silence was immediate. Marcus opened the folder. The messages were fake, digitally created by Victoria Hampton, my ex-girlfriend, in an attempt to ruin Hannah's reputation. Morrison kicked up the report. This is substantial evidence.
It's irrefutable evidence, Marcus corrected. You demanded the resignation of an innocent employee. More than that, you made me doubt someone I love. The board members exchanged uncomfortable glances. That's why I'm announcing some immediate changes. First, we'll file a lawsuit against Victoria Hampton. Second, Hannah will be rehired with a promotion and significant pay raise. Third, we'll implement new policies to protect employees. And what if she doesn't want to come back? Marcus smiled for the first time in days. Then I'll have to convince her. That afternoon, Marcus stood in front of a group of reporters. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, Marcus began. I called this conference to clarify some incorrect information. Cameras flashed. Hannah Mitchell, who was unfairly accused of being a gold digger, is completely innocent. The so-called evidence against her was fabricated. A reporter raised her hand. Mr. Donovan, does that mean your relationship is real? Marcus took a deep breath. Hannah Mitchell is not a fraud. She's the most genuine person I've ever met. She's funny, smart, brave, and has the rare ability to make anyone smile, even on their worst days. He paused. She's the only person who's made me truly smile in the past 20 years. And yes, I'm completely in love with her. The buzz among the journalists was immediate. If she forgives me for doubting her, I intend to spend the rest of my life proving how much she means to me. The press conference made headlines everywhere. Hannah was at the community school trying to teach xylophone when Mrs. Ruth appeared. Hannah, dear, you have a call. Hello, Hannah. It's me, Jessica. Jessica? Hannah brightened. Hannah, did you see the press conference? What press conference? Marcus held a press conference today. He said you're innocent, that the messages were fake, and he said he's in love with you in front of the entire press. Hannah's knees went weak. He said what? Hannah, it's on every channel. He defended you publicly. Jessica, I have to go. Thanks for calling. Hannah hung up and sat there processing. Marcus had declared his love publicly. He had risked everything for her. And she was pregnant with his child and couldn't tell him. An hour later, Marcus was driving through the streets of Brooklyn. The Hope Community School was a low, simple building with an old playground. Marcus parked and sat in the car for a few minutes watching. Through the windows, he could see Hannah with a group of children, gesturing animatedly while holding an out-of-tune guitar. She was singing, of course. He could see her passion, her energy, the way the kids adored her. It was the most beautiful thing Marcus had ever seen in his life. At that moment, Hannah looked out the window and saw him. She froze in the middle of the song, the guitar almost slipping from her hands. Miss Hannah, one of the kids called. Why did you stop? Hannah quickly looked away. Nothing, sweethearts. Let's keep going. Marcus went back to the car knowing he had shown up at the wrong time. Hannah needed space. That night at home, Marcus looked at his phone a dozen times, but he knew he needed something bigger, something special. He thought about the kids at the school, about the way Hannah lit up when she was with them. He thought about that silly political cat song that had changed his life. He thought about how to make Hannah smile again. And then he had an idea. A completely crazy, embarrassing idea, perfect for Hannah Mitchell. Marcus picked up the phone. Margaret, he said, I need you to get me a costume. Yes, a costume, and a portable sounding system, and maybe some emergency singing lessons. Mr. Donovan, are you okay? Marcus smiled. I'm great, Margaret. For the first time in a long time, I'm great. Tomorrow he was going to win back the love of his life, even if it meant making a fool of himself. For Hannah, it was worth it. The next morning, Hannah arrived at Hope Community School, still thinking about Marcus standing outside. Miss Hannah, shouted Tommy, running up to her, are you going to teach us a new song today? Of course, sweetheart.
It was in the middle of the second verse, while she was pretending to tap dance like a T-Rex, that the classroom door opened. And in walked a giant panda holding a wireless microphone and a small portable speaker. The kids went completely silent for exactly 3 seconds before exploding. A panda! He has a microphone! He's going to sing! Hannah let the guitar slip from her hands. She knew that posture, even hidden inside a panda costume. Marcus, she whispered in disbelief. The panda gave a shy wave and turned on the microphone. Hi, kids. I'm the Love Panda. I'm here to sing a very special song for a very special person. Tommy raised his hand. Mr. Panda, you sound nervous. I am very nervous, Marcus admitted, because the person I'm singing to is the most amazing in the world, and I messed things up with her. The panda turned to Hannah. Hannah, please forgive me for letting you go. I might not know how to sing, but I know the only song that makes sense now is you. Hannah felt her eyes fill with tears. He was really there, dressed as a panda, ready to make a fool of himself for her. Marcus, she began. Love Panda, Emma corrected excitedly. Marcus cleared his throat and began to sing. To Hannah's horror and delight, it was exactly the song she had sung on her first day, the same political cat song. His voice was completely off-key. He messed up the lyrics twice, tripped over the panda costume's feet. But he kept singing with touching determination. Are you seriously singing my made-up song? Hannah asked, laughing and crying at the same time. I am, Marcus replied, and I'll keep singing it as many times as it takes until you forgive me. The kids were ecstatic, clapping off beat. When he finished, Marcus turned off the microphone and removed the panda head. His hair was a mess, his face red. Then, still wearing the rest of the costume, he got down on one knee. Hannah Mitchell, he said, his voice shaking, will you marry me? For real? No contract, no lies. Just love. True love. The kind that makes you want to sing songs about political cats for the rest of your life. The room fell completely silent. Hannah looked at him. This man who had left behind all his corporate dignity. Only if you sing the chorus with me, she said, and rhyme my name with spaghetti. Marcus panicked. Rhyme Hannah with spaghetti? That's impossible. Then you'll have to get creative, Hannah replied. Marcus took a deep breath, still on one knee. Hannah, you're better than spaghetti. Your smile makes me feel, confetti. The kids laughed so hard, Tommy fell off his chair. Hannah couldn't hold it in anymore. She started laughing and crying at the same time, then ran to hug Marcus, who was still kneeling in the panda costume. You are completely crazy, she said, kissing his cheek. Crazy about you, he replied. The kids surrounded them. They're going to get married. The panda's our friend now. A few weeks later, it was the wedding day. Hannah had insisted it be held outdoors at Prospect Park with the kids from the community school singing in the choir. Now, standing behind the trees, Hannah adjusted the simple white dress. It wasn't a princess dress, but it was perfect for her. Miss Hannah, Tommy came running wearing a tiny suit. We're ready to sing. The music started, not the traditional wedding march, but Hannah's own composition played by a string quartet and sung by the children. Hannah began walking down the improvised aisle. Marcus was at the altar, flawless in his tuxedo, but with that smile she had grown to love. You look beautiful, he whispered. You don't look too bad yourself, she replied. Eleanor was in the front row, quietly wiping away tears. Beside her, William was filming everything. The pastor began the ceremony. We're gathered here today to celebrate the love between Hannah and Marcus. Hannah, would you like to say your vows? Hannah took Marcus's hands. Marcus Donovan, when I met you, you were the most serious man I'd ever seen, like a museum statue serious. But I discovered that behind that grumpy executive face was someone sweet, funny in his own way, and willing to wear a panda suit for love. Laughter. I promise to sing to you until we're old and gray, even if my voice still sounds like a broken printer. I promise to make you laugh every day, and I promise to love you exactly as you are. Half robotic, totally wonderful. Marcus was clearly emotional. Hannah Mitchell, you came into my life singing a song about political cats and turned everything upside down. You taught me that laughing isn't betrayal, that joy isn't weakness. He took a deep breath. I promise to smile every day. I promise to support your wild dreams, your made-up songs, and I promise to love you and our children with everything I have. The rings, asked the pastor. Tommy came running but tripped. Hannah and Marcus laughed, and Marcus helped him up. Happens to the best of us, champ. They exchanged rings and promised to love each other in joy and in sorrow. I now pronounce you husband and wife. Marcus, you may kiss your bride. The kiss was met with applause and cheers. At the reception, Marcus surprised everyone by dancing awkwardly, singing along with Hannah very badly. He's not afraid of looking silly anymore, Eleanor whispered. Hannah did what no amount of money ever could. She brought my son back. As the sun was setting, Hannah and Marcus sat under a tree watching the kids play. So, Mrs. Donovan, Marcus said, how does it feel to be a married woman? The same, but with a new ring, Hannah replied. And you, happy? Happier than I ever imagined I could be. At that moment, Hannah felt something strange in her belly, a tiny movement. Marcus, she said, taking his hand and placing it over her still small belly. They're kicking. Marcus froze. Then his eyes widened. I felt it. I felt both of them. Hannah laughed. I think they're excited about the party. Marcus kissed her belly. Hi, babies. Today was a very special day. You've got the most amazing mom in the world. Hannah held his face. And you have the most in-love dad in the universe. As the sun set over the park, Hannah and Marcus Donovan stayed right there, smiling, feeling their babies move, surrounded by the most unlikely friends and the most loving family they could have asked for. And for the first time in a long time, everything was exactly where it was meant to be. What did you think of Hannah and Marcus's story? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Rate the story from 0 to 10. What score would you give it? Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you don't miss any of our stories.